So, hey, what's up, guys? We're here again. Fourth episode of Those Podcast Guys. We are Those Podcast Guys. I'm Kal.
I'm Ian.
And today we're here to talk about events. Now, the last episode we did, it was a long one. More power to you if you stuck to the end and all that. This episode is not intended to be like an unofficial condensed history of events. Like, you have some events over there on your side of the table, I have some events over here on my side of the table. We're really just gonna talk about like, hey, this event, whether we liked it, whether we didn't like it, or anything. And then even if there's some that we some events that's happened that we don't have the copies of, obviously, we'll talk bad about them too if we want to. It's not that big of a deal and everything. So yeah, got anything you want to say before we jump into it?
Okay. We were discussing this before starting this episode. What constitutes an event? There's a difference between a run and an event. An event is usually, not always, but usually its own title. It could be a mini series, most likely. Anywhere from like 6 issues to like 12 issues, or more.
And I would say it's something that has like tie-ins that go in with it.
As well. Yes.
Well, I mean, you have to throw that out there, because then, if going merely by the logic of like it has its own title and it's like a mini series or something like that, well then, strictly off of that definition, Kingdom Come is an event.
Yeah.
It's not an event.
No,
like, it was a very self-contained like story set in its own universe and all of that kind of stuff. We're not talking about stuff like that. We're not going to talk about Kingdom Come. We're not going to talk about like All-Star Superman or All-Star Batman and Robin. We're not going to talk about like any of the Frank Miller stuff with Dark Knight and all that kind of stuff, because those are not events. When, like, as he said, event, something that really shakes the ground of the universe that it's taking place in. Usually there's going to be tie-ins that go in with it. If it's a really, really big event, there will be a few aftermath issues or something like that. So yeah, that's what we're here to talk about. And I think I'm going to get things, go ahead and get things started. But again, we're not just going to talk about, I'm not sure how long this episode's going to go. Probably, it might be one of the shorter ones that we've done and everything,
That's not a bad thing.
No, but, like we're not going to do like an oral history of, it was this year and then this event happened and then the following year this event happened and then, this company decided, we're going to do this, like we're not going to jump into all that kind of junk. And we're not going to go in any kind of like publication order or whatever. I've kind of got things piled up just here, and I'm just going to be grabbing stuff out here and there. Same thing with him and all that stuff. And we're going to go from there. So I'm going to get things started and probably pretty much talk about the event of all events. You can't really talk about big, massive events without talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths. This is pretty much, while not the first major comic event, this is the one that pretty much put them on the map. That pretty much was like, okay, this is something that we can do like periodically, like, this massive crossover thing that we do and all that kind of stuff, because this was very much like an unprecedented type thing that was just done in comics at that point in time, not just really with DC. It was very much like everything about Crisis on Infinite Earths was very ballsy. It was very groundbreaking. Again, unprecedented. Like, you didn't know what was going to happen.
No.
Like, it literally was a universe-changing event.
And honestly, I think that's what kind of sets the original Crisis head and shoulders above most events. Is we've joked about it, I don't know how many times, the universe will never be the same.
Yeah.
In the case of Crisis, that was pretty true for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
this gave birth to the DC continuity I grew up with, and
Yeah,
yeah,
same here. And anyone who's our age, pretty much what we grew up in, and gave us the continuity up until uh Flashpoint in the New
yep,
52.
yep,
So like this, without this event changed comics. Like
absolutely.
it was just one of them deals to where like DC, they were bogged down. They're like, hey, we need to revamp some things, we need to change some things and all that. And it's just like, let's just hit the reset button and let's do this massive freaking story for this reset button instead of just saying, okay, we're starting over or whatever. Like, no, there was an actual story behind it that connects what came before to everything that came after. And I love Crisis. I don't know a lot of comic readers that don't love Crisis. Like,
The first time I ever read this, it was actually pretty late. I read it completely for the first time about 10, 15 years ago. I sat in a Books a Million, and they had the trade, and I read the complete trade. This is wordy, okay? Like, Alan Moore blushes a little bit at the wordiness of the original Crisis.
like just this is this just a very average standard page. Like, look at all those bubbles.
Yeah.
Like, you might sit there and be like, oh, well, that's not that bad and everything. Like, yeah, well, I mean, like I said, that was an average. Look at all that. I mean, look at all that. Like,
Yeah.
this is a thick book. Like,
Yeah.
and just about every page is like that. Like, there's not a whole lot of just, sitting back and looking, like, really enjoying. Probably, like, there's so many. Like, whenever I tell you Crisis, if you're going to talk about, like, the top 25, that's a future episode. The top 25 most, like, well-known or iconic / influential comic book images of all time.
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple ones, arguably, that come from Crisis. That being one of them. Like Superman.
That might be an homage to a previous issue of Byrne Claremont X-Men.
Yeah, well. I was looking. I can't find it. But, anywho.
But yeah, like, this is the Big Daddy.
My introduction to Crisis was, I've explained it no telling how many times. The kaiju crowd really knows, which I'm representing them today. But the kaiju crowd knows I just did not have a lot of access to a lot of stuff growing up, just where I was way out in the country and all that. And so a huge chunk of like me getting introduced to Marvel and DC was through a lot of their animated stuff and a lot of their like live action movies and everything. Like I watch, not just movies but TV shows as well. I grew up watching the Adam West Batman series. I grew up watching like the Super Friends and all that. I grew up watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Yeah.
Like, like I freaking, like, that's just the stuff that I grew up on. And it was years later before I was like, I would start kind of jumping into comics here and there. And it was this cover that I saw of Crisis that I was like, I can't remember when I saw it or where I was, but it's just, to someone who's never really jumped into the comic world before, to see this image. What happened to Supergirl? What happened to Wonder Woman? Why are there two Supermen?
Yeah.
Like,
and one's obviously older.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of the Reed Richards going on.
Yeah, it's just like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
What is this? And so, yeah, it was just, like, I want to say I read mine at Books a Million, my first copy, but it was inside one of the chairs or whatever, like in between like church services and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times we would go there and just spend a crazy amount of time there, and so I would read a lot of comics, like trades and all that then. And so yeah, that's probably where I read mine. But yeah, I remember sitting there reading it, like seeing, Barry die for the first time,
Dude.
and all that stuff, and it was just like, that's some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
For a kid that's like,
yeah,
you used to all the camp and this and that of the animated series of the time and like the Adam West show and everything like that, and then one of your very first comic book experiences is Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like, it's just a slap in the face to you, just about.
Well, that, and also like this is not entry level comic material.
Oh no!
I mean, I
didn't know what the heck I was looking at half the time.
I mean, like, I can't imagine being like 8 years old trying to read this for the first time.
No.
Be like, multiple universes, like
I see 3 Supermen right here. Like, who are you?
Mama, that's weird.
That's an inside joke right there. I might share. You know what? I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all what's up. Okay, so you guys know Ian used to be a manager of Hastings and all that, and so I would go there all the time. And in the middle of one of the aisles, they had this big poster thing to where it's like basically a giant book.
Yeah, flip book.
You just look, and you can look at all the posters. When you see one you like, you see the code up on the corner, and then you could dig through the thing to find the code that you're looking for. Well, there's this little kid, and I'd say this kid was probably 4 or 5 years old or whatever, and it was a little boy, and he's looking through the posters and all that, and he's just
education.
he's just talking and everything. Now, mind you, Hastings is not like it's not a child-friendly store in every single area. There's a kids section. This kid was not in the kids section, and he shouldn't have been looking at these not kid-friendly posters.
We had to tell customers all the time, this is not a family-friendly store.
No.
Keep your eyes on your kids. We are not responsible for what they happen to see or stumble upon.
Like they sold adult magazines. You know what I'm saying?
For your sophisticates.
and they were just within arm's reach on a stand. So, it just, if you've never been, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you missed out because it was a great place. But anywho, so this kid's flipping through the posters and everything, and I'm just I'm looking at some music or something like that. I can't remember what I'm doing, but I'm just near, and I can hear this kid just talking and everything, and the mom is just paying as little attention to him as possible and everything. Well, after a while, he flips the poster thing, and there was this poster. I guess it was something for Fender or for Gibson or something like that. Well, the particular poster, probably a pretty well-known image, to be honest with you. It's nothing but, I'd say, about 12 to 15 naked models. Nothing is showing because they have guitars properly angled.
God bless America.
That blocks everything. And let me tell you, God bless America, some of these ladies were blessed. So, you needed the whole guitar to block some of that. But anywho, so yeah, this kid is flipping, he's just going through. He gets to that one. And he just stops. He just stares. And I've noticed what's happening. I'm like, what in the world's going on here? And he sees all these girls. There's no nudity. They're using each other's hands to cover themselves up and all this stuff. But obviously, this kid has never laid eyes on something like this before. And so he backs away from the poster. He just starts pointing at it, and his finger is shaking. And he goes, "Mama, that's weird." And I had to leave. I was about to laugh so hard. I don't know, how the mom rescued him or whatever, pulled him away or anything like that. But it's dude, that has stuck with me, and it will be with me till the day I die. That little kid seeing all those naked girls and being like, "That's weird." So, Trust me, son, it gets a lot less weird later on. But yeah, so anywho, that has nothing to do with Crisis on Infinite Earths. But that kid was in the middle of a crisis, let me tell you. So yeah, Crisis on Infinite Earths, one of the greatest events of all time. Like, it's absolutely stood the test of time. Till now, this came out in 1985.
Yeah.
Here we are, 2025.
Still talking about
And we're still talking about it, still got it, still ranting and raving about it. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it. Again, you cannot talk about major crisis or major events in comic book history without this one being in the conversation. You just can't.
Agreed.
If you're not talking about this one, then
And
work on your comic book knowledge.
And this event is still as relevant today as when it was written.
Yes. So, all right, that's it for my first selection. What do you have?
All right. I'm going to end with my favorite. I'll start off with Forever Evil. Man, this was just fun from start to finish. Again, Jeff Johns writing, David Finch on art, killing it. I don't think the man knows how to draw a bad panel. And this is just answers the question: what if the bad guys win?
Yeah, and it was something.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
My only, man, God, this was so much fun. But like my only quibble with it was, of course, Batman's just kind of.
Oh, he's there.
Yeah.
He's got to be there because he's the DC machine. But while you're looking for whatever it is you're looking for,
I'm just flipping through.
oh, okay. Yeah, this event came about after it was another event called the Trinity War that happened, and after the Trinity War, like, this pretty much came out of left field.
Yeah,
because I was like I remember reading the final issue of Trinity War, and I can't remember what the Earth 3, like, Aquaman was called, like what his name was, like Sea Master or something like that. It was something kind of corny like that, but like, he came through a portal, and you're just kind of like, you're reading and you're like, the heck is that? And then he passes out dead. Like, what in the world's going on and everything? And then, like, the other characters are starting to piece it together. And I think it was Wonder Woman, like, had pieced something together, and she just said Earth 3. And then you see, like, it goes back and you see the silhouette of, like, Ultraman and all that, like, coming through the wormhole and all that. And I about threw the issue. I was like, are you kidding? I was like, are you kidding me right now? Well, yeah. So, yeah. Comes out, very, very great comic book image of them coming out. They're standing over what's Ocean Master?
Maybe.
Standing over the Earth 3 version of Aquaman and all that. And so then all of a sudden it's like, okay, dang, here we are, because at this point in time, like with the New 52, you still don't quite know what all's what in the New 52. Yeah. You're still waiting on lots of characters to make their first appearances and stuff like that. And all of a sudden it's like, out of nowhere, it's like, dang, okay, the Crime Syndicate is here. And I love the Crime Syndicate. They're one of my favorite, like, groups of villains and all that. So I was very, very happy to see them. I love the New 52 design of Ultraman.
Yeah.
Like, I think he looks way better than, like, the main continuity, like, post-Crisis Ultraman that there was. I loved it. I freaking love that event.
Yeah. I mean, this was fun from start to finish. Yeah, I mean, I remember it seemed like you said, came out of nowhere. I don't remember any announcements about it ahead of time. It was just like boom, and it
If there was, we completely missed them.
yeah, and but I remember everybody was like, "Oh my god, what is going on?"
Yeah.
You know,
Because I
and
mean, well, you're just sitting there reading. Well, you're reading an event. You're reading the
yeah,
end of the Trinity War. I think that's what that event was called,
yeah,
Trinity War.
yeah,
Like, we're not talking about that one today, because, well, at least I'm not. But yeah, you're reading the end of the Trinity War, and then turn to like the last page or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, crime syndicate, next event. Like, okay, yeah. Dang, I was fixing to say something. It's gone. Oh, one of my favorite one of my favorite things, quotes or whatever from comics, I think is just so cool. It's just a nice little reversal kind of thing. I've told you is whenever you find out, or you see that Ultraman is weakened by sunlight, and he's moving. I want to say it was whenever he was moving the moon to
yeah,
block the sunlight and
yeah,
all of that, and Lex Luthor is like looking up, watching all of this happen, and he says, "This looks like a job for Superman." And then the next panel is him saying, "Where the hell is he?"
yeah,
And it's like, it's real whenever Lex is like, "Where's Superman?" Like,
yeah.
like like Superman 2, whenever Superman shows up and perches up and says, "General, would you care to step outside?" And Lex is like, "Superman, thank God." I mean, get him. But yeah, this was a super fun book. Really, really enjoyed it. So, you done?
Yeah, yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. So now this next one that I'm going to talk about is one that's kind of a letdown, to be honest with you. And I was super, super pumped about it whenever it was announced and everything was going to happen and all that. And that is Convergence. So the whole deal with Convergence, which was going to happen, I'm not going to be able to get this one to stand up too well because I'll just hold it. But the whole deal with Convergence was that this is going on during the New 52 and all of that. And basically, the multiverses of DC were going to collide and have this big, giant, basically, this big, giant battle royale. I've only read it the one time as it was first coming out and everything, but we were grabbing trades and stuff like that I have here at my house and all that. And so, that's just one of the ones that I grabbed. But I remember being very let down by that particular event because I was super excited for it for the longest time because I was like, okay, we're gonna get to see like Kingdom Come Superman going up against like other characters and all that kind of stuff. And like Kingdom Come Superman is my favorite version of Superman that there is and all that. And so yeah, I was super, super, super pumped for it. And then it came. And then it went. And I was just like, that wasn't all that great. Like, about the only good thing that I will say that I genuinely liked about this event was that we got to see post-crisis Superman again. Because after Crisis on Infinite Earths, and that pretty much created the continuity that we've all known pretty much the vast majority of our lives and all of that. Weren't uh, if you weren't around before 1985, so post crisis Superman was like the Superman of our childhood.
Yep.
Like that, anyone read in comics or whatever, you were reading about him. And then when the New 52 got started, it's like you kind of had to say goodbye to an old friend, kind of in a way, to where it's like not just with Superman, but with lots of the characters and everything. And so it's like these are brand new characters, brand new histories, brand new origins, and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden you're reading this, and there's post crisis Superman. And immediately it's like that little kid just comes flying back into you, no pun intended, because it's like, that's my Superman.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's here. Like, what's he gonna do and all of that? And that's whenever we pretty much get the him and Lois are, they're expecting, like, spoiler alerts, obviously, like they have their child. This ends up becoming John Kent, who will become the future Superboy and everything, because they go through a wormhole towards the end and everything, in which they are now in the New 52 universe, but they're like in hiding. They're doing things like behind the scenes and all that stuff. And so whenever the New 52 Superman dies there towards the end of the New 52, post crisis Superman steps back up and becomes Superman once again. So that's one good thing that I can say. Overall, I was very let down by Convergence, but one thing that I can honestly say I'm super happy for about Convergence is that it did bring back my Superman.
I get that. I didn't read any of this. I flipped through some issues that were on the stands, and it just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
You know, not knocking it. You know.
No, I mean, makes sense. Like, trust me, it came with a battle cry. It left with a whimper.
Now,
Like, it just, everyone made a big deal about it. Like, it was supposed to be this big, massive thing. And I remember being like halfway done reading it, and I'm just like, this isn't all that. Like, I think DC kind of missed the mark with this one. Like, it didn't do it. Just,
well,
it's not good.
So, has this guy Jeff King gone on to write any other major things for DC?
I mean, if he did, I mean, I'm not familiar.
Because I mean, we all know, Frank Miller, Alan Moore, Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, Mark Waid. They're kind of the DC heavy hitters of writers. Now Tom King, I don't care for his writing, but he is,
We're Tom King haters. We are Tom King haters. Just gonna throw that one out there.
I mean, Tom King did the nigh impossible task of getting me to stop reading Batman. So
that's a tall order.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just thumbing through this. Yeah, this was a very big letdown in my opinion. You had like some big name characters went up against each other. We had like the Earth 2 Batman, the New 52 Earth 2 Batman had made comeback and everything, if I'm remembering correctly. And then you had like Kingdom Come Superman went up against like the 90s Superboy and all that kind of stuff. And somehow the 90s Superboy stood a chance. Stupid. But yeah,
I just noticed something. This event, as well as the original Crisis, not for newbies.
Oh no. No. If you're new to comics, don't jump into this. Like this is something that like you get to later on, and the same way with Crisis on Infinite Earths, because again, like like I said just a little while ago, Crisis on Infinite Earths was one of the earliest like comic books that I actually read, like comic books, like an actual trade or whatever. And whenever I tell you, as a little kid, I was lost as a goose, because I'm like, there's so much history that goes on in that, and just me being a little kid that's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna read this. Superman's on it or whatever. Yeah, I'll check it out. And then flipping through, I was seeing heroes for the first time that I've never laid eyes on before. I'm seeing Flash die. Like, I mean, it's like, what the heck am I reading? Like, this is the most confusing type thing. Yeah. But for me personally, Convergence was a letdown. So if you liked it, more power to you. But for me personally, it was a letdown.
Yeah. We'll go to one of my all-time favorite events, the original Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars from 1984. This is the first major crossover event, where a whole bunch of heroes from different titles are gathered together and put upon this planet to fight for the pleasure and whimsy of a nigh god figure known as the Beyonder. Is it an amazing story? No. Is it fun? Yeah. It's just fun. It's just simple kid fun. And I will say, I do think this was more targeted towards, kids. Um, they actually came across the title Secret Wars because there was some market research done, and they found that kids responded most to the two words secret and wars in
Wow.
marketing. And so
Wow.
they're like, hey, let's call it Secret Wars. Hold on. I got an idea. Also, I'm a major Doctor Doom fan. This is one of Doom's greatest moments. Uh, the sheer hubris of Doom to stand up to the Beyonder, he gets blasted to pieces, and then he's like, "Okay," and goes on to steal the Beyonder's power, resets his face, and then he's just like, "All you heroes and villains, you're beneath me." Yeah. Like. Just another Tuesday for Doom.
He's an arrogant prick. That's what he is.
He's the greatest character in Marvel Comics. No. But yeah, I mean, it's just good, dumb fun. This was basically just kind of like, if there were ever just a battle royale in the Marvel Universe, here you go. It's fun. And, for better or worse, it did set the standard of, hey, why don't we do one of these every year? And then it became, we could do this twice a year.
Yeah.
To event, to event, to event,
yeah.
to event.
I mean, almost to the point where it's like micro events.
Oh, yeah.
So like that events that are contained to just like, oh, we're going to do this event, but it's only going to take place across X-Men titles. Or, like things like that.
Yeah, like the story of this is not fondly remembered unless you're a major Doom fan like I am, or a Spider-Man fan, because this does have the first appearance of the alien costume. That distinction is shared with Amazing number 252 and Marvel Superhero Secret Wars issue 8. So, yeah, good fun. It's just a Saturday morning cartoon on the page. Have fun, enjoy. You're welcome.
I have nothing to say about that comic. I've read it once. Nothing about it really stood out to me. Super, super big. Like as you said, like is it great? Not really. Like I remember enjoying it.
Yeah.
But then it was just like, oh, okay, and then just put it down afterwards. I'm not knocking it,
no,
by any means.
And I mean,
I just don't really have an opinion on it.
I mean, the first time I read this, I was on the school bus. I think I was like 7, and this came out whenever I was like 4 or 5. So there was a kid on the bus who had some issues, and I just remember reading. I was like, "Oh my God!" Like all these people are together, and they're bickering and arguing and fighting, and it's glorious. And yeah, it's not, it's not written for the modern reader. It was targeted at kids, and it didn't try to be more than what it was. So,
yeah. All right, I'm going to jump into the next one. Now, already talked about one crisis. Let's talk about Final Crisis, which obviously was not the final crisis because we've had another crisis since then. But yeah, not gonna lie, I really can't remember a whole lot concerning Final Crisis because I've read it just the one time. I did not read the individual issues as they were coming out. I waited for the trade. So I really can't remember a whole lot about this. I think it's just, obviously the big thing that everyone remembers about this is Batman's sacrifice that happens, and the fact that like Superman gets super mad about it. Yeah, because spoiler alert, I'm not going to show you. But like,
Psych.
go read it. Like, you want to know what happened, go read it. But yeah, concerns like dark side and all of that kind of stuff, and then again, not gonna give too many spoilers concerning it and all that, but it leads up to this big, not necessarily event, but this incredible journey that a certain character is going to go on afterwards. That was a fantastic read.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I had bought this pretty much as soon as it was available to be bought. I had gotten it, went home, read it and everything. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna talk about it like it's this big like it's this big critically acclaimed story, because I just didn't view it like that. Kind of in the same way with Secret Wars. Like, I enjoyed it, but I was just like, it's okay. Like, I don't see myself ever really going. To me, what really lets you know like it was a great event is the fact that you will reread that event. You know what I mean? And a lot of these ones that I talk about so highly, I've read multiple times. Like, I've read that once, and I don't see any reason to revisit it again. But yeah, I wish I had more positive things to say about it.
I do feel very positively about this event. I was reading the single issues of it as it came out, and I think, is it number 1 here? So I'll give a small spoiler. It's just at the very beginning. I think it's at the end of issue 2. We see Barry.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. I'm not gonna lie,
dude.
That one. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like it's up there with like 9/11 and JFK for me. I remember where I was whenever I read issue 2 of this, and the final page is Barry coming out of like a portal or a wormhole or emerging from the Speed Force, and he just says,
"Run."
And I was like, what? Like, okay, if you don't know, I'm a huge Barry Allen fan. I like Wally. I love Wally. I respect Wally, but he's not Barry. Okay. And this gives rise to one of my
just to give you guys a little, like, you've got Jay and Wally pretty much there, like they're just chilling and everything, and then this thing goes to open. They're like, what in the world's going on and all that, and then you see somebody off panel say Wally, Jay, everybody. You turn the page, and there's Barry just screaming "run," and he's being chased
by the Black Racer.
Like, and it's just like, what?
I mean, this was what year did this come out? Because this was at least like 20 years. Yeah, okay. This came out in like 07, 08. Barry died in 85. And so a little over 20 years later, like, this is what fans had been waiting on. The return of Barry Allen. And while I do think Grant has written better stories, The Invisibles, he didn't have to jump through a whole lot of hoops to make this happen. But he said, I think it's in the introduction, he noticed something when reading the original Crisis. He noticed a little loophole, a little escape clause to be able to bring Barry back in.
If anyone was going to find it, it was going to be Grant.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so this gives rise to a little interesting bit of my personal headcanon, and this may be correct. I don't know. Feel free to chime in the comments. I think Barry may be the only character, or one of the only characters in the DC universe to remember pre-crisis and post-crisis and possibly New 52 continuity. Like, he may have memories of all three, like,
Yeah. I'm not sure about New 52, but yeah, he would obviously remember
pre-crisis.
pre-crisis and post-crisis, like both of them.
Yeah.
Because he was still around. Oh, he wasn't there for the reset.
Right.
Like,
And so, okay. In the original Crisis, Barry's running around, he's literally running himself to pieces, and he's flashing in and out of time at different points. That's what Grant saw. And he's like, that's my end. And so whenever Barry emerges in this, for him running from, the anti-monitors thing, this was just a few minutes before, or a few seconds before. So for us, 20 years have passed. For Barry, seconds.
attosecond. Like, I saw something one time where it said, what are some words that, like, only comic book fans will, like, understand and all that, and one of them was attosecond.
Attosecond, unstable molecules.
But yeah, read it one time. I love Grant Morrison. I do. He's one of my all-time favorite writers. He was my favorite writer for a long, long time. I openly considered him my favorite. But yeah, just read it one time. Don't see any reason to revisit it anytime soon. But it is good. Don't get me wrong. Like, just, don't let me be a downer about it or anything like that. But check it out. It's pretty good.
If you're not familiar with Grant Morrison's writing style, it may take some getting used to.
He's not for everybody.
No, no.
There's a lot of people in the comic community that just flat out don't like him.
Yeah.
Like,
but I'm not one of those people. You're not one of those people.
Yeah. It's okay with being incorrect at times. So, all right. What event you got next happening here?
So, we talked about this in the previous episode. Ultimatum. So I was wrong. I haven't read this.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was flipping through this before we started this episode, and I was like, "What the crap?" It's like, do mine eyes deceive me? Like,
there's some messed up stuff in that comic.
Yeah. But like, that's bold. That's bold storytelling.
Yeah.
That's what you want in an event.
Yeah. But like, I'm not gonna lie, I get why people hated it. I really do. I get why people hated it. Especially, like, nobody wants to, even if it was going to be the end, because like I said, unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was designed originally to be the end to the Ultimate Universe. But even if it's going to be the end of the Ultimate Universe, you don't want that end to be like 30% of all the characters you've been following for like the last 7 or 8 years to just die.
Be like Debbie.
Very brutal deaths. Like, there's some brutal.
Yeah.
Like it.
Like, this is some Debbie Downer scorched earth BS, dude.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that character you loved and you've been following, yeah, they're gonna die in a puddle of their own vomit in an alley.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Off panel. Like, they find them like that. Like,
I'm trying to find that. Oh. That's some brutality you don't see all the time.
Yeah, like we talked about in the last episode, it's a complete tonal shift from
Is it cannibal?
Taste
of chicken, son.
That is Blob eating Wasp. He's eating, like, he's being a cannibal, pretty much.
I don't think there's any pretty much to
it. It's just, it was a complete tonal shift from anything that had been in. Look at that.
Brutal. Brutal.
And so, Ultimatum comes out, like, it shakes the comic book world pretty much, and not in a good way. Like there was just people hated it; they could not stand it. And I said in the last episode, my brother was collecting Ultimate Comics up until Ultimatum, and he pretty much came to me, and he's like, "Boy, do I have a story for you," because he knows, like I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm the guy that loves a story that will challenge the status quo.
Same.
Like, oh, this has always been that way, and this story challenges that. Let's check it out. Let's see what it's challenging. What's its proposed changes and all of that kind of stuff. That's just me. That's just how I am. I love reading Elseworld stuff and everything because it just again, like I've said before, I can only read about Superman saving the world so many times until eventually it's kind of like I know he's going to be able to pull this out. Whereas you read something that's Elseworld, characters are different, mentalities are different, anybody's up for grabs to basically be killed off. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. It brings back the element of you're reading something on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
And this did that for me.
Oh, no, I can see that.
Because there was, I brought up before that, like, Cap, at one point, Captain America is in a coma. And they don't know if he's going to make it out. And so part of you wants to sit there and be like, oh, he's going to make it. He's Cap. But then you think back about everyone else who's already died in this story. And you're like, man, Cap may not make it out of this. It was a crazy story. Yeah, I know you had this and you was, it was on your side. But I mean, I love Ultimatum. I really like. I'm sorry that I know that's a very controversial thing to say in comics. I do not care. I will flat out tell anyone I love this story. That's just, I love it.
No, I'm actually looking forward to reading it. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I love stories that challenge the status quo. So yeah.
You can borrow that if you want.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so next up, this one is an event that I was very, very fond of. I have this volume as well as pretty much all the tie-ins, also in hardcover and everything, because when Blackest Night hit, whenever, like, I know you're not fond of Blackest Night.
We'll get into that.
We'll get into it. But, like, whenever Blackest Night hit, I can't explain it. I really can't. Like, this is just one of those events that whenever I heard the concept of it, I was just like, okay, that sounds really intriguing. Like, I'll check that out whenever it starts coming out and everything. And with each issue that I was reading, it was just like, my God, start the next one, I freaking loved it. Like, and I'm not the biggest Green Lantern fan. You know that. I'm just not. Like, it's nothing against them. It's just like, I think they're a little bit more, about the only way I really know how to say it, and this isn't knocking that genre at all. They're a little bit too science fiction for me.
I get that.
Like, I prefer, like, more like superhero type, like, comics and everything like that. I'm good with other type of comics, but like the Green Lantern Corps is more like the superhero version of Starfleet, in my opinion. No, it's like,
I mean, they're space cops.
Yeah, like, and so that's I'm just not crazy about them or whatever, and so a lot of Green Lantern stuff usually is not on my radar. But whenever I found out, like, oh, there's a Black Lantern Corps, and they deal with, like, zombies and stuff. Okay. Like, that sounds kind of intriguing. Like, let's see what's up with that. And yeah, so say what you had to say.
So, okay. I remember reading, because a year before Blackest Night came out, there was, the Yellow Lantern Corps War?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was amazing. I loved that. I was all for that. I have my favorite periods of Green Lantern, and leading up to Blackest Night was absolutely one of those periods. Starting with Green Lantern Rebirth, it was amazing. Ion the Torchbearer, amazing. So I remember reading the trade of the Yellow Lantern Corps War, and the last few pages being like a teaser for Blackest Night. And on the very last page, you see coming next year, Blackest Night. And at first, I was excited. You know, I was just excited about the possibility of any character who has died being resurrected in some manner.
Yeah.
And, but when this started, I was cool with it. And then it just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I was like, oh man, I'm freaking sick of these zombies. Like,
I mean, it's only 6 issues. Like, what you talking? Or was you reading?
dude,
like,
you got like 5 volumes.
That's all the tie-ins.
Yeah,
and stuff.
that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, you was meaning like just everywhere you looked, it's like Blackest Night, Blackest Night,
Yes.
Blackest Night.
Yes.
Okay. I can understand that, like getting burnt out on it, just everywhere you look, because just about every single issue that was happening with DC, like became like a 3-issue arc for Blackest Night. Like it was like, well, I don't feel like reading that. I'm gonna read what's happening over here in this world. Like, oh, it's Blackest Night tie-in. Look at that. Like, yeah, you just couldn't escape from it pretty much. But I was perfectly fine with that because, like, I have. Hang on.
It's a sickness.
It's not a sickness. Yeah, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 more like tie-ins to Blackest Night over here. Yeah. So yeah, I've got the Black Lantern Corps Volume 1. I have the Black Lantern Corps Volume 2. I have the Rise of the Black Lanterns Corps right there. And then I have just the Green Lantern Blackest Night tie-in there. So, yep. Those 4, as well as the Blackest Night event itself. I was a big fan of Blackest Night.
But see, to me, whenever we talk about events and tie-ins, I think there's positives and negative examples. For me personally, Blackest Night is a negative example as far as tie-ins go.
Well, yeah, because then pretty much your entire publication becomes that event.
Right.
Where it's like not everybody may not everybody wants to have anything to do with that event. Sometimes there's people out there that don't give a hoot about events that's going on. They're just like, whatever. Like, I'm over here just reading Wonder Woman. That's all they care about. And it's like, oh man, are you reading this big event and everything? Like, what are you talking about? I don't care about that. I read this one title, But like freaking loved Blackest Night. I'm not going to get into some spoilers for certain things, because to talk about some things that happened here, I would have to talk about some things that happened in Final Crisis, and I'm just not going to do that. So yeah, but yeah, this was fantastic, and for some reason, this actually settled a debate amongst a lot of Superman fans for a long time, because anyone, according to this story, with the Black Lanterns and Necron, I believe was the villain's name, he could bring anyone or anything back. Well, Aquaman was able to control like dead sea life and stuff like that, and that was freaking nuts. Like he was able to bring back anyone who had died before. He just could. And so there's a part in here in which like Superman shows up to try and like, let's see what you can do against me. Because Superman had died against Doomsday before, he turned him into a Black Lantern. For some reason, there was debate. I don't understand the debate. There was debate amongst Superman fans on whether or not Superman had actually died against Doomsday, or if he was put in like some kind of coma or something like that instead. Where I've always really believed Like, Doomsday killed him.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want that to be retconned. Because to me, that takes away from Doomsday.
Exactly.
Like, Doomsday needs to stay. Like, yes, they've used him in, since then for more. I mean, they're using him right now in a current Superman arc and everything. They got a story happening with Doomsday. But they've used him before. I never want them to retcon anything saying that, like, oh, well, Doomsday didn't actually kill Superman. He just put him in a coma. Like, no. You just lessened Doomsday to he's just a regular old Superman villain now at this point.
Right.
Whereas all this time before, like, no, he's the thing that did what no one else was able to do. He's the monster that beat Superman to death. Literally. But yeah, so this settled that debate to where, like, there was a lot of people that's like still think he was in a coma. Like, how'd Necron get him? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no. So it settled that Superman had died. It's a fantastic series and everything. If you, like, look, I get it. If you don't want to read the tie-ins, you don't have to read the tie-ins. It's all good. You're hurting yourself.
My complaint was not with the story. My complaint was the sheer amount of tie-ins.
Yeah, and in this, we get, like, the orange lanterns and, like, the red lanterns and, like, other cores like hope, compassion, love, and all that kind of stuff. Like, really expands on the lore of, like, of the lanterns and everything. Not just with green lanterns or yellow lanterns, but the lantern core overall. I really enjoy it. Go check it out. If not, then, oh well.
So, I'm getting into Thor quite a bit lately. I've loved the Walt Simonson run for years. Ragnarok is the final Thor story in my head canon. Write it down.
Watch the previous episode to hear us talk about headcanons.
And you gave me a trade of this. I'm not going to lie, I'm not 100% sure where it's at right now.
It's okay.
But I will be revisiting this soon. So let's talk about Siege.
Yeah. You've never read it, or did you read it?
I read part of it whenever it was coming out in singles.
Okay. So I read it, loved it. It's one of my favorite Thor stories and everything. It pretty much deals with whenever Marvel at the time was doing the whole thing with, like, the Dark Avengers and, like, Norman Osborn was the Iron Patriot or something.
Yeah,
I think
that was a fantastic era. No, I'm not being sarcastic.
I can't tell half the time.
I'm not being sarcastic. Like, I mean, you had a title that just focused on the bad guys.
Yeah.
Every month.
And they were the Dark Avengers. But, so anywho, yeah, they were involved with this, and, like, Sentry was involved in it, and, this is pretty much like the major, there was a lot of build up to Sentry, like, fully unleashing the void and all that kind of stuff. And, I'm not gonna lie, I really wish I could like Sentry more. I really do. Like,
I actually am a big Sentry.
I like him as a character. I don't like that they just up and decided, oh, he's been there the whole time. Like, like that, but whatever. That's another talk for another time. But anywho, so yeah, this takes place after the Straczynski run, whatever, for Thor and all that. Which gonna go ahead and let you guys know, Thor is he's top dog when it comes to Marvel Comics for me. Like, has been my favorite Marvel character pretty much ever since I found out he existed. And the reason why is because as a little kid, I was real big into mythology, like Greek mythology and all of that. And I watched a movie whenever I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. It's called The Vikings, starring Kirk Douglas.
And Tony Curtis.
Yes. And Janet Leigh.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so, like, it's a great movie. Like, came out like in the 50s, I believe.
50s or 60s.
And
yeah.
like, it's a fantastic movie. It's based on a novel called The Viking. And I was a big Kirk Douglas fan. Kirk Douglas is my all-time favorite actor. And I kept, like, this was going to be my first time watching a movie that had anything to do with Norse mythology. And so I'm hearing all of this terminology and things about these different gods for the first time. And I'm like, man, like I'm all about this, like the Viking culture stuff and everything. Like I gotta jump into as much of this as I can. And so very, very limited access. I would like just find little things on Norse mythology whenever I could. And whenever I find Thor, like he's a redhead, like me, like big, beard, has a freaking hammer, like controls lightning and thunder. Like I grew up on a farm. He has a freaking chariot pulled by goats. I had goats. I'm like, I'm Thor.
Hold on. I'm picturing you as a little kid, just being like, he's just like me.
So yeah, I jump on the Thor. I'm like, this guy is as cool as they come. And, so then by then, I'm kind of getting into comics here and there and all that kind of stuff. And then I found out that Marvel Comics has a version of Thor. And so I'm like, that's my guy right there. And he's been my favorite Marvel character ever since. And so leading up to this event, you have the Straczynski run on Thor, which whenever Marvel was doing the whole disassembled thing during like '04 or something, '04, '05, somewhere in that window. Um Whenever they did all of that, like Thor disappeared.
Yeah.
He was gone for a while. Like, and the Straczynski run didn't start until like '07 or '08.
Yeah.
I think. So it was a couple of years. Like a few years that Thor was gone. And let me tell you, somebody that like Thor was about the only thing keeping him attached to Marvel, I didn't give a hoot about anything that was going on in Marvel during that time. And whenever I found out, like, I mean, I read Civil War and all that stuff, but kind of briefly got excited whenever, Thor showed up in that and everything. Then turns out it wasn't even Thor; it was just a bot and all that. Which I have an action figure of that over there.
Yeah, I saw that.
But yeah. So the Straczynski run happens, brings back Thor. I'm super pumped, super excited. Loved reading.
Check out the Straczynski run. Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Yeah. Where's it at? I'll show you. You ain't got to worry about me.
Yeah.
That run right there. That's the first cover.
If you've never read Thor, I feel like you can start there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like you don't even have to read Disassembled, I don't believe.
No.
So you can just this would be a very good starting point for Thor readers, and then if you want to go frontwards or backwards, just whatever. But yeah, this is a very good starting point. It's a fantastic story, so check it out sometime. But so yeah, that one comes, pretty much brings Thor back to the fold, changes a lot of stuff, because of the events of Disassembled and everything like that. Like Asgard is now on Earth. There was this whole thing about like you can't just claim land and all that, so he levitates Asgard like 7 feet above above ground, so that he's like, technically I'm not on your land anymore, kind of thing. Like Thor pretty much has the powers of the Allfather at this time. Something fantastic happened, because after the events of Civil War, let's just say that everyone pretty much hates Iron Man. Okay, I don't know a whole lot of people that really, even readers that were on team Iron Man after that. And there's a interaction, like, because it's after Civil War and everything, and Iron Man comes and visits Thor and is basically telling him, you're going to have to register with the government and this and that. You've been gone. Things have changed and this and that. And like, he tried to throw his weight around and all that. And then all of a sudden, like, there's like flashes of lightning going on in the background and everything. And Thor is just basically letting him know, you're not going to come here and tell me what to do, Slick. And Iron Man decided, like, okay, you want to do this the hard way? Let's do it the hard way. And Thor proceeded to give that man the most one-sided beating that I think Iron Man's ever had in the history of comics. When I tell y'all Thor beat him, the fight ended with him ripping his mask off, having him by the throat, face to face, and pretty much tells him the next time, like in no such words, the next time he comes to see him, he's like, I will show you the true difference between a god of thunder and a man in a metal suit. Pretty much implying that he was holding back.
There we go.
There, look
Tony's
at it.
down on his knees.
Like, Thor jacked him up, and it was beautiful. Like, I have the single issue of it, like that image right there.
Oh, nice.
I have the single issue somewhere of whenever he did this to him. And it's one of my favorite comic issues of all time, because it's just like, I'm so happy that Thor is back. I was so happy to see Iron Man put in his place. Like, it was a great moment. But all of that aside, yeah. So pretty much, this takes place not long. Like, it's a different writer had already jumped on board and everything, and so this is like, it's the same design for Thor and all of that kind of stuff.
This was essentially the capstone to what was started with that trade.
Yeah, pretty much. And we pretty much have this big, like I said, like, it's the Dark Avengers show up. They're going up against Asgardians, and then like more Avengers show up, and they're like going up against the Dark Avengers and all that. Sentry shows up, the Void comes out, like, dukes it out with Thor, and it's a freaking fantastic story. If you've never read it, you can honestly read like the first like 3 volumes of the Straczynski run, and then like there's like one volume after that. You may need to read volume 1 of the Dark Avengers, and then you can read that, and that's a very short reading list whenever it comes to comics.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, especially considering that Thor run is just good by itself.
I mean, that and the Simonson run where he introduces Beta Ray Bill, those are the things that got me into Thor.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of times whenever people are like, I want to jump into Thor, like, where should I start? 9 times out of 10, the Straczynski run is the first thing out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell them that run. But yeah, Siege was fantastic. Loved it. This is the big deluxe edition. It's written by Bendis. Take it or leave it. I mean, I know there's lots of people out there that's not crazy about Bendis. I personally don't have much of an issue with him. Like, he's done some controversial stuff, but I mean, I'm sure you guys are figuring out by now that I'm pretty well okay with controversial stuff.
Yeah.
So
we're kind of friends with controversy.
Yeah, pretty much. So it is written by Bendis. So if that's a turnoff for you, I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
You're missing out.
Like, yeah, you're missing out, because like this has like a lot of the tie-ins. There's I have another like Siege that was just like the Thor title or whatever, and then there's like a Siege Aftermath volume that I have and all that. Like, this Siege is one of my all-time favorite events. So.
I believe there is an omnibus out there that collects Siege, the tie-ins, and the Aftermath, all between 2 covers. So, if you're so inclined.
Yeah. So, okay. Save that one for last. Yeah. So, all right. We talked about this one, a decent bit in the last episode that we did. Let's talk about Flashpoint. Flashpoint is another event that like I was hooked in from the very start of it, or the very first time that I read anything concerning it. And Blackest Night was the first event I ever read in which I needed every tie-in. I want everything that I can have of this. This was the second event that caused me to do that. Like, I've got all the somewhere here. There's a box of comics that has every Flashpoint, anything that dealt with it or whatever. It's in that box, like the single issues and everything. So yeah, if anyone doesn't know, Flashpoint is pretty much the event that DC used to hit the reset button on their continuity and pretty much create the new 52. Flashpoint will forever be a good story because that Flashpoint, if it wasn't for Flashpoint, you and me wouldn't have ever exchanged words the day that we did.
Yeah.
Because it was free comic book day, and I had come up there and I had gotten some free comics, and some of them were like I was kind of in a lull with DC comics or just comics in general. I wasn't really reading a whole lot, but I kept seeing like a lot of stuff at the top of some of the comics saying "Road to Flashpoint," and I'm like, okay, well, what is this? And so I started like digging into it and everything, and I'm like, okay, it seems interesting. I think I'll check that out. And I remember I missed issue number 1. And so I came to Hastings, found issue number 2, couldn't find, like, because issue 2 had just came out, looking for issue number 1, couldn't find it. A mutual friend that we had at the time directed me to you because it's like that you were the comic book guy, and was basically like, if it's here, he'll tell you it's here or whatever. It's not. It wasn't here, but that was the first time that me and him actually exchanged words like, hey, how you doing, and all that. Like, we've just kind of seen each other around at that point in time. Like, it was early enough to where, like, I don't even think you was really hanging out. Like, you and him was really just co-workers at that point.
Yeah.
Like, y'all wouldn't even like hanging out or anything at that point. Like, so it was very early on. And so I was like, okay, whatever. And then that eventually led to, because they were co-workers, they became closer. And then for your birthday party, like, I got invited by him
Yeah.
to come to, and I was just like, man, I don't freaking know this dude, you know? Like, and yeah, and here we are. But yeah, so came in looking for Flashpoint, and went on ahead and ordered. I ordered issue number 1 from Midtown Comics. I waited for it to come in before I read issue 2. Read them both back to back, and was just like, this is gonna be something. You know, again, I love Elseworld tales. I love whenever things are happening that it's like you don't know what's gonna happen, you don't know who's gonna live, who's gonna die. Just finding out who's Batman
Right.
was like never would have seen that coming. You give me 1,000 guesses, name something that they changed in Flashpoint, I never would have guessed that. Like,
Right.
but yeah, freaking loved Flashpoint. Followed it up until it was over. Like, you know, it was a pain in the neck for me because Hastings had like the main title. Y'all had a few of the tie-ins. Y'all didn't have all of the tie-ins. So a lot of the tie-ins I was having to order from Midtown Comics, and then, you know, waiting for them to come in and all that kind of stuff. And it was a pain in the neck. But yeah, so really, really enjoyed Flashpoint. It's one of those events that I have very little to no complaints with it. I don't really have a whole lot of anything to say about it other than praise. So, what's your thoughts on it?
No, I'm fine with it. I had no complaints. Maybe it's like a little bit of like hipster in me or something, but it's like the more people hype up something or talk about it, the less I want to do with it.
Yeah.
And this will probably get some nasty comments, but I mean, I appreciate it, you know, from a storytelling standpoint. It's interesting, but at the same time, I'm just kind of sick of hearing about the Batman that was revealed in Flashpoint.
I understand. Yeah, so if you haven't read it yet, go check it out.
All right. As far as events go, I think this is way up there.
Oh, yeah.
talk
Something that,
about-
let's just be honest here, it's a miracle that it ever even happened.
Yeah, you like, if you want proof that dreams come true.
Yeah, the DC versus Marvel omnibus right here. Just let you guys see how thick of a rascal that guy is. Like 3 fingers.
Do you need to spend triple digits on a doorstop? Here you go.
It was not cheap, let me tell you. But yeah, God, I'm not gonna lie. There's some things in here that I've never read. Like, because it doesn't just collect. I know a lot of people, whenever they think like Marvel versus DC and all that, they think like the fan voted Marvel versus DC event that they did. And then there was the JLA versus Avengers, which I don't know how it stands now, but for a good while, JLA versus Avengers was considered canon to both companies.
Yeah.
They both considered that story canon, so that was pretty cool.
I actually think that still stands.
Okay. But yeah, there's lots of there's a few things, like it collects a lot. Let's see here. See if I can read off what all's in this thing. You got the very first crossover, which is Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man, which that's in here. I have like a jumbo size.
It's right over there.
Okay, I have a jumbo size of the Superman versus Spider-Man, which I love that comic. Like, I genuinely
Talk
do.
about one dude who has no business going up against
like
the
what
other.
my favorite, one of my favorite pictures ever. I don't know who the artist is. It's somebody like there's a little pedestal in between them and they're arm wrestling, and Superman is just standing there. Peter has got like bowed up on both of his. He's got his feet on the pedestal and like pulling as hard as he can. Superman's just standing there. He's whistling and he's reading the Superman versus Spider-Man comic.
That's awesome.
Just sitting there like that. It's like, wow.
Now, is the JLA, the X-Men and Teen Titans thing in here?
It should be. That should be every time.
Uncanny X-Men and Teen
Yeah,
Titans?
this should be every time up till now, obviously.
I might have to get this.
Yeah, like this should be every single time Marvel and DC is crossed over with each other. Like there's a Punisher versus Batman thing in there. The Marvel versus DC, the JLA versus
You got Darkseid versus Galactus.
like, dude, like I had to have that I had to have this whenever I saw that it was available. But yeah. So the main thing, like, we're not going to talk about every single issue that's in here, obviously. Like, that's an episode in and of itself. Because, I mean, it's a lot. You see everything that's actually in here. So I think, like, the two things that we'll mainly talk about are, like, the two big events that most people know, in which it's the one that was just simply titled Marvel vs. DC, which was all the outcomes of that was decided by fan vote. So there's a lot of whenever it comes to well, I mean, there's some stupid stuff that's in there. Okay, like
I can think of a couple things.
I mean, just to give you guys an example, we had Aquaman versus Namor. Okay, this is fan voted. The fans voted that Aquaman would beat Namor. I agree. However,
you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
What?
Are you kidding me? But
I'm gonna walk off this podcast.
Bye. Go on, get out. You know? I can't stand Namor. But
Imperious Rex. You hear me?
but Anywho, so Aquaman got voted as the winner between the fan, and I don't know how many fans voted on this. I don't even know how the vote was. I don't know how the vote was done or anything, But so each battle, no joke, would only be like a page or two long in this. It was. Have you ever read it?
I've read some
Like
of it.
it's trash. Like it's just
Buy it. It's trash.
it's straight up trash, dude. It's so terrible. But so while Aquaman and Namor are fighting, like Aquaman calls up an orca, I believe, jumps out of the water, lands on top of Namor on a dock, knocks him out.
Dude.
That's
Dude.
even as much as I don't like Namor, I'm like, dude, Namor ain't no punk.
No,
And
he's
you're gonna
not.
you're gonna have him go out by having an orca land on top of him. This dude's taking a punch from the Hulk.
I was about to say Namor's knocked out the Hulk before.
Yeah, it's just in the whole thing is just full of it's just full of little stupid
Fan
things
service.
Like, oh yeah, absolutely. Because again, it was all just fan voted. Who do you think would win this fight? You had Wolverine without an adamantium skeleton defeat Lobo. You had Spider-Man defeat Superboy, 90s Superboy. The one that looks like he's a little wannabe biker and all that stuff. So I'm okay with that.
Same.
But,
Same.
You had
Now, okay. I've read the Batman versus Hulk one.
That's not in that.
Oh,
That's not
God.
in that one. I don't think it's in that one. No, it's not in that one because Hulk goes up against Superman in this one, and this is mullet Superman at this point in time.
Yeah.
And so Superman wins that one. You have
Superman's got the power balance correct.
blasting the he blasted the Highlander soundtrack. But so you had Batman versus Captain America in that one. Cap won.
I'm okay with that.
What else was? Oh, there was Thor versus Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam nowadays. But Thor makes an appearance in his very, very, very outlandish 90s.
Oh, that Thor.
Yeah, that Thor. The one with the hair that's going all, and it's like, why are you even wearing a top? Because it's just, you know what I mean? Like, that suit only made 2 appearances in, like, Marvel Comics. So, like, he showed up once.
It was around like Thor number 500.
Yeah, something like that in the regular title, and then it showed up in that crossover event. We never saw that suit again.
Nobody.
And everyone is okay with it. Yeah. But yeah, so Thor beats Shazam.
I'm okay with that.
Like Silver Surfer versus Green Lantern. Surfer won.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
So I can't remember. I never owned that one. My brother owned that one, and that's how I read it. But it's in here. So eventually I'm gonna take the wrapping off of it, and I'll actually thumb through it, and you know what, the odd heck with it. Let's just go ahead and take a gander. You know what I mean? You buy books to read them. So
while he's unwrapping, tell us in the comments, what are some of your favorite events? What are some of your least favorite events?
Oh.
Nice.
Okay. So let's see. Maybe it's not in here. Maybe because those are already collected or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other ones were like one shots or something like that.
But yeah, that whole Batman versus Hulk thing, where Batman basically punches Hulk in the stomach.
Kicked him. Hit him
Oh,
with
sorry.
gas and then kicked him. Knocked him out. Okay, well, I don't think that particular crossover is in here actually, so I was incorrect about that. But anywho, I wonder if it's on DC Infinite.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong. The whole DC versus Marvel thing, didn't that lead to Amalgam?
Yes.
Yeah, and Amalgam was also a major event, and it led to Amalgam was like a series of one shots and maybe some mini series of like character mashups. There was one called Dark Claw, very '90s name, and that was a
Very
mashup,
very 90s look.
and that was a mashup of Batman and Wolverine.
He looked awesome.
He did. He did. He was like the definition of edgelord. There was Super Soldier. He was an amalgam of Superman and Captain America. You remember some others?
I honestly don't.
I remember the Dark Claw thing very, very clearly. But yeah, I don't know if the amalgam stuff has been collected or not. I'm honestly not sure. But yeah,
It says it's in that omnibus. Thumb through that and look.
what am I looking at?
It's just called Marvel versus DC.
Gotcha.
But
Take it away.
so that was that event, and let's be honest here. The only people that's really going to be super excited about that thing are little kids. That's like, let's read about Superman and Hulk fighting each other and stuff like that, because like when you leave it in the hands of fans to vote, there's a lot of fans it's just a popularity contest to them. And it's just like, like, let's be honest here. That's why Wolverine beat Lobo. I think
Yeah.
I think anyone who's read comics, Lobo comics at all, like, will tell you.
We ain't talking about Twilight Lobo.
No, we're talking about
Talking about the
main
main man.
Like, yeah, like Wolverine does not beat Lobo. He just doesn't. And it was just junk like that. But the other big event that came from like Marvel versus DC, they did a crossover called Justice League of America versus the Avengers, in which I can't remember the exact reason, like why things happened like the way it did and all that. But sorry, I thought this was it. Apparently not. But like I can't remember exactly why they're fighting each other and all of that kind of stuff. But this one was actually put together, to my knowledge, it was put together by like comic book writers. They came up with the story and all of that kind of stuff and everything, and it was much better received. And it's actually a very good story to read. And this is the one in which whenever you have, like, a lot of times whenever people say, like, well, who would win in a fight, Superman or Thor? And you say, well, Superman would win. And then here comes the Marvel crowd. No, Thor would win because Superman is weak against magic. Let's get something straight. Superman is not weak against magic. Magic affects Superman the same exact way that magic affects
Just
everybody
about anybody
else.
else.
Like, he's not weak to it. That's the same thing as saying, like, Batman is weak against a boulder. Like, it's like he's not weak against a boulder, but if a boulder hits him in the head, he's gonna die. Like, it's just
like,
all it is to it.
I'm weak to a lack of oxygen and sushi.
Yeah, like, so anywho, like, a lot of people get upset whenever, you sit there and like, oh well, no, Superman would beat Thor. And people are like, oh no, he wouldn't, and this and that. It's like, no, it was decided. between Marvel and DC.
Oh no, it was decided.
Like I said, like this thing is canon, or at least it was. It's canon to both companies. They considered it canon. like and they had Superman beat Thor. Not only did they have Superman beat Thor, but Thor went to swing his hammer to hit Superman, and Superman caught the hammer and stopped it. Like, that's just all it is to it.
Yeah, I've got the Green Lantern Silver Surfer thing at home. I'm a big Silver Surfer fan. So
This is the one I think whenever Batman. No, maybe not. Well, I can't wait to actually sit down and read this.
So okay, I was flipping through here. Apparently there is an amalgam omnibus, and I think that has the Marvel versus DC miniseries in it.
Okay.
But still, I mean, extreme entertainment, worth the price of admission. There's a lot of stuff in here that, if you were to gather them all in single issues, you would spend quite a bit more than it would cost you to just buy the omnibus.
Oh yeah, because a lot of the single issues are, they had a very limited run, obviously, because both companies are not just going to keep something like that just
right.
on print like all the time and everything. So naturally, if something was printed like in the 80s or something, they may have only printed enough issues, to go for a year, 2 years, something like that, and then no more is being printed. So if you want one, good luck finding one. And sometimes they can run pretty doggone high. Okay, I'm pretty much to the point of giving up looking.
Yeah.
But yeah, anywho, this was definitely go pick it up. It's got a good selection of things in there that that you can read and all of that. Check out the JLA versus the Avengers. It's a very good crossover and everything. If you really just want to check out something that's like cheesy and see just how much the fans can get it wrong a lot of times whenever it comes to,
not us, the other fans.
Yeah. The ones that voted Wolverine beating Lobo. They're wrong. But yeah, just check it out and everything. But yeah, this would be a very good pickup. It'd be worth the money, trust me. So go check it out one day. And so the last event that we have to talk about, pretty much in that we're gonna show off and everything, we might list off like one or two here and there, is I think this is like the event of events, just because, like, I think for a long time, I think that other copy that I have, it actually has printed on the top that it's the best, it's like the highest selling graphic novel of all time.
I wouldn't doubt
like it sold more copies than any other. And that is, of course, The Death of Superman. Like,
now this is a little bit of an exception, because this was like a crossover between the various Superman titles.
oh yeah.
This wasn't like its own publication.
Oh no. If going off the criteria of what we were talking about, like what is an event, honestly, like this really doesn't qualify as an event, but because of how big of a deal it was,
yes,
it became an event. Not just in the world of comics, but in just
pop culture at large.
Culture, yeah. I mean, like it made national news. It made world news.
Yeah.
People were talking about, like, DC is killing off Superman. And, like, I'm not going to get into, like, the details that led up to it, because that, like, I'd have to, like, I just don't feel like getting into it. Like,
that'll have to be its own episode.
Yeah, just talking about, like, the death of Superman, and which we talk about, like, the whole, like, funeral for a friend, and like, and all that stuff of him coming back,
Return
and all
of the
that
Superman.
oh yeah, I mean, and all that stuff like that. That's an episode for the future and all that. But people like, I know it's real easy nowadays to look at Superman and just be like, whatever, it's just Superman. He's the big blue Boy Scout, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, but to do something like this, the death of Superman, was an unprecedented thing to do back then. And it's something that's like it caused people to start talking. It caused people that had never purchased a comic book before in their lives decided we're going to go check this out. And there's footage. You can look it up on YouTube. There's footage of people like rounding corners and blocks, like multiple corners, waiting in line to try and get into a comic shop to buy the poly bag that had the death of Superman in it. And I have it's one of the most like highly like printed comics of all time, I would imagine. Like, because I have a poly bag of it, the one that's like in the black and everything, and I have one that's like in the white. Like, I've got so many different little variants for it and all that stuff. But yeah, it was a big deal whenever this happened. And as Ian said, it is very self-contained. Like, it's really just a crossover amongst like all the Superman titles, like Superman, and then like the Man of Steel. I can't remember what other titles was like. I think it was just one.
Adventures of Superman.
I think it was just like one other title.
Action Comics, Adventures of Superman, and Superman, and then News Time, The Life and Death of Superman.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was, when I say the comic event, like, there's never been another comic event. There's been events, like Crisis, that changes the comic book industry or changes, like, narratively speaking and stuff like that. There has never been an event that caused such a stir on a worldwide scale the way that this did.
Agreed. And for better or worse, started the kill them off, bring them back trope.
Oh yeah, because that's one thing that a lot of people, a lot of people were very upset whenever they brought him back. I mean, it's this big thing to where like you make this big, massive deal about you're going to kill Superman, so then you kill Superman, and then like how long was it before they brought him back?
Not long.
It was not long at all.
Okay, the last issue of Adventures of Superman, and this is 498. They brought him back. They started bringing him back in Adventures of Superman number 500. But no, like this is one of those things. I remember where I was whenever. I think I was like 11 or 12 whenever this came out. And I remember my mom had stopped by the local comic shop we had at that time on her way home from work and got everything that was in my bag. This was it. Superman number 75. And I remember very carefully cutting the poly bag along the top, pulling the issue out, reading it, and being sad. Like, it was extremely well written. Every page of the final issue in this is a splash page.
You see Superman in a way you've never seen him before.
Yeah.
He's beaten, he's bloodied. Like, I mean, there's a part where it's like he's trying to like headlock Doomsday, and just the spikes from Doomsday's chin is like embedded into his bicep, and blood's coming all down. Like, it was like, for like, I didn't read it whenever I was younger. Like, I was well into my teens before I read it. But I could just imagine, like, little kid me reading that, I'd have lost my mind.
I mean, like I said, like I remember being a kid and being affected by it.
Yeah.
It was sad. And it just...
But, to this day, it's still one of my favorite Superman stories of all time. Like a lot, whenever you ask me like what's I wouldn't say it's one of my it's one of my favorite stories of all time, but whenever you just limit it to just Superman, it's up there for me. Like because it absolutely holds up. There's one image of let's see if I can find it.
Well, like I mean, to me, this is like Superman's Rocky moment.
Oh yeah. But and I talked about before that it's like I'd never want them to retcon that Doomsday did not kill Superman because it takes away from Doomsday and all that. That right there. That's one of my favorite comic book images of all time. Just Doomsday and Superman throwing down, putting it all on the line. And
mine is in issue 75 where they're fighting in front of the Daily Planet. That.
Oh yeah, that one right there. But like I've said before, that like if you retcon that Doomsday did not kill Superman, he just becomes a regular old Superman villain.
Yeah.
Because as of right now, he is the monster that beat Superman to death. But one thing that I like to like people they prop Doomsday up like like you constantly hear them say that like he's the monster that beat Superman to death. He's the monster that killed Superman, and that's a chip that they give to Doomsday. Well, one thing and there's a lot of people that don't have a whole lot of respect on Superman because for whatever reason they just don't like him, or well, I mean, a lot of times it's because they just don't like him and they like to downplay a lot of stuff that he does.
Big Blue Boy Scout.
Yeah, but I sit there and will argue with people like, dude, you're going to sit there and say Doomsday is the monster that killed Superman while completely overlooking the fact that Superman is the man that killed Doomsday because he beat him to death too. They both died during that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like love the death of Superman. This is probably like the event of all events whenever it comes to comics and everything, just because not only what it did with the comic book world and all that, but then also just the effect that it had on mainstream media, pop culture, and all that stuff.
Any other events we want to highlight in passing?
I mean, if you got one, you can.
Yeah. So, to me, this is one of the best examples of a recent event in that the writer executed this event, taking the previous 50 years of continuity. He didn't throw anything out. He just used what was there and added to it and kind of put a new spin on it and completely reset the status quo for like the next 5 years. And that is House of X / Powers of X by Jonathan Hickman. Like to me, that's one of the definitions of like an event done right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not familiar with that one. Me, I'm not a big
X guy
in the X-Men or anything, so I don't read a whole lot of stuff concerning the X-Men, but I've always heard nothing but positive things about those that particular event, the House of X and all that. Yeah, I can't really think of a.
Also, Hickman's 2015 Secret Wars. He obliterated the Ultimate Universe and then threw away a lot of what was part of the Marvel Universe and then rebuilt.
Yeah, pretty much. And which led to, I can't remember if it was in the last episode or this episode that we talked about that, whenever I said he pretty much just took, got rid of the Ultimate Universe, took what was popular from it, threw it in 616, and was like, here it is now.
Yeah.
Like that's basically it.
Yep.
But yeah, comic events are fun. They can be fun. Let me put it that way. Because we talked very highly about a decent amount of events today. And believe me, there's plenty of events out there that we don't care for. I mean, and we can't really show those off because why am I going to buy something that I don't like? So I'm not going to have the trade for that or anything. But Yeah, I miss the days whenever an event actually meant something,
Yeah.
whenever it actually had weight, whenever something would happen and it's like, okay, like you could actually use the tagline, things will never be the same, and it meant something. Not just, oh, here's this event and things will never be the same. And then 6 months later, you're starting up the next event, things will never be the same. And then 6 months later, here's the next event, things will never be the same. It's just like y'all, like I'm getting tired of this. Like, like it's okay to just have small little events happen and everything. Not everything needs to be this world shattering, universe changing thing that is going to change everything about this universe just so the current writer can have his props and say, well, this is what I did, like,
Now, another example of, especially a modern example of an event done right, and I would say after Death of Superman, um, I would say this one had a whole lot of public traction. That'd be Civil War.
oh yeah, Civil War had a lot of traction. I liked Civil War for what it was. I mean, I didn't. It's nothing I'm going to write home about or anything. I remember being pretty pumped about it though whenever it was first coming out, and then whenever I read it, I was just like, it's okay.
I mean, it had major ramifications for Spider-Man fans.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like that was I remember. Oh, boy.
That's a whole episode.
It is. We're throwing out plenty of episodes, But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Hopefully for future events, like they're a little bit more careful with their planning and all that kind of stuff. And it's not, like I said, it doesn't just, not everything has to be this big giant, like world shattering, universe altering type thing. Sometimes you can have something just as simple as Siege. Like,
Yeah, or it's like, does this have to be? Does this have to be an event? Does this have to be its own thing? Can we just tell the story in the pages of the regular title?
Yeah, can it just be a miniseries? Like,
yeah.
Like, whatever. But alrighty, guys. Yeah, I know Ian's already asked y'all, but if you have like a favorite event or whatever, comment down below and all that. If you agree with any of our takes, disagree, let us know in the comments and all that. If you want to hear us talk more in detail about any specific event that we've talked about or one in the future, just let us know and we'll dig into that and everything. And as always, like and subscribe. It'll help me out trying to build and grow the channel and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, you got anything you want to say?
Imperious Rex. Namor stomps.
All right, guys. We'll catch y'all next time. We're those podcast guys. I'm Cal.
I'm Ian.
We'll catch y'all later.